And I have given each of you a copy of the budget message from the city administrator. I received, I am required to give you what the ordinance says. And I'll be doing that tonight in 3 parts as we go through this first work session. We're starting today on development of your budgets for fiscal 2017. And our goal is to complete the work so that you can adopt the operating fund budget and the capital fund budget during your regular monthly city council meeting on Monday, December 5. So that will means we got a lot of work for us, and this is the first of our budget review work sessions. The others are scheduled, and I put in front of you a schedule for the meetings coming up. We'll have one at 4:30 on Monday the 7th, and on Thursday the 17th. Also one on Monday the 28th. Chris, I think you've given the agendas for the next couple of meetings also. So you have the agendas, I think, for your next 2 meetings. Now, as part of this process, we will be having a public hearing on the capital budget, and then we will be having 2 public hearings on the operating budget. The first one on the operating budget will be on November 17th, the second on November 28th. That in addition to trying to move forward with the 2017 budget, we do have some work that we need to do on our current 2016 budget. When we have your next meeting at 4:30 on Monday, November 7th, we will start off, we've done a little change on the schedule, but we will start off that meeting on November the 7th by looking at your current budget and some budget amendments that we need to discuss with you. That at some point during the month of November, you will need to adopt some type of amended budget. Finance Director Sarah Hefty is working on this, and we will do this on November the 7th. Now, looking at the 2017 budgets, let me point out, I think Ms. Hefty has done an excellent job coordinating the budget preparation process at staff level. And she'll be talking with you in a few minutes about the process and about the budget information, how we collected that. And during these 3 work sessions on today, the 7th and the 17th, you will be hearing from each department director. And tonight, the only department director we have coming before you is Senator Stilwell, the Senior Senate Director. And the reason she's on the budget on your agenda tonight is that at the time of your next 2 meetings, she's tied up on senior group making trips, and so that's the reason we will have her before you tonight. Now, when you look at tonight's agenda for the next hour and a half, we want to give you an overall review on how this work is proceeding, what we've done to date, and with each part of the agenda tonight in future workshops, there will be built-in opportunities for you to engage in discussion among yourselves and with appropriate staff. We've done a lot of work to bring us to this point. Sarah and I have had a number of meetings with different staff people, and like I say, I appreciate the leadership and the guidance that she has in this process. And also one person that you may not have ever met, but is very valuable to us in fiscal matters with our contract with the city of Villa Rica. Her name is Louise Shamble. She's a member of the Villa Rica Finance Department, an employee like Sarah. We claim both of them to be integral parts of City Hall staff here because of the work that he does. Now, last Friday, we did provide you with a copy of the proposed capital and operating budget. I trust that you brought that with you. If you didn't, we do have a couple of extras that we can provide to you, and then we hope to get them back from you before you leave. So if you need a copy, we can make one available to you. What I've tried to do is, in looking over these next 4 work sessions, is to give an opportunity for department directors to present information to you, to have discussion with you, for you to have discussion among yourselves. We will be flexible as we go through this, so if we get in a particular, looks like we're getting off track from a time standpoint, Mr. Mayor, I probably would say to you that we probably need to have the council members move along with discussion so we can reasonably stay on schedule. At the end of these 3 work sessions, if we do have a 4th work session scheduled so that you can go back over, wrap up anything, maybe changes, things that will happen as we go through these meetings that you will want to go back and revisit. Now, I will tell you that we're turning over to you a balanced general fund budget for the new fiscal year. It's a little over $2.7 billion. Fiscal situation, as I'm sure you're well aware, is different than the water and sewer fund. If you've looked at the information we provided to you, you know that at the moment we're looking at a deficit that will be a challenge to us as we work through this. We are showing revenues in this fund of just about $2 billion, projected expenditures of about $2.3 billion. So we do have some changes we'll be having to look at. In just a moment, Mr. Mayor, we'll turn this over to Ms. Hefty for whatever discussion, whatever she wants to present to you. And then after she presents her comments, if there are questions that any of you have for Sarah and myself in terms of the general approach that we're looking at, the process, we'll be glad to entertain those, and then we'll move to capital budget. But Sarah, turn it over to you for the comments you have.
Hold on just a second. This scheduled work sessions, if everybody looks over there, I do not recall these work sessions, so if this is going to work with everybody, then maybe we can stay on schedule. Does anybody have any comments about the schedule or work sessions that you guys want to have?
We still advertise the work sessions, right?
We had an advertisement in the paper published, I believe it was Friday, that showed the full schedule.
Yes, sir. I have a doctor's appointment next Wednesday, and I don't know what will come out of that, if anything other than that would be scheduled for me. But if it should come with the seal something right here, I'll have to let the department know.
You say next Wednesday?
We don't have anything next week.
No, I mean, after my visit with the doctor next Wednesday.
Okay, yes.
They'll let me know if I'm dying or not.
Exactly, sir.
And, you might want to
We may
schedule something.
have to look at this again.
Right, that's
before
what I'm
you're
saying.
done.
Yeah.
I understand that, sir.
All of these dates are calling for a meeting, either a regular council meeting or a special call meeting. On the same night.
Yes, sir. We were trying to keep you from having to make so many trips up here, so that after the 9th, the next time would be the 9th, that you would already be having a special council meeting at 6:30, so we'd be one of these before 30. Then on the 17th, we have this annexation rezoning that has got to be dealt with. We have started moving forward with the necessary advertising, but the Carroll County Development Authority operation, their option on that property goes just through November, so we've got to get that wrapped up. And then we do have to have, of course, the public hearings on the budget, so we were trying to put all these together so we have when you come. I know it's a lot of meetings, but at least we're trying to limit the number of nights that we have.
What I was trying to get to, it all has to be advertised anyway, whether it's a call meeting or a work session.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about the annexation South Platform.
Yes, sir.
Everybody okay? Mr. Osborne's schedule. Mrs. You say something? Mrs. Hayes.
All right. The budget process started back in August. We met with the department heads to discuss the process, and I gave them spreadsheets that showed 2013 to 2015 expenditures, the 2016 budget as it was, and 2016 actuals at that point, which was the first 6 months. And they took that information and then they made their request for operating budget and capital items. We had a few weeks to do that, and when it came back in, we compiled all that information and looked at the initial revenue projections, see how we balanced, and it didn't. So we kind of Mr. Osborne, and we looked at it and set out where we could, and tweaked the revenue projections where we could, and I think we met several times until we came up with a balanced budget after adjusting the revenue projections and things. I tried to beef up the presentation of the budget a little bit more, trying to make it more clear. So I did separate the capital budget this year, and as noted in the memo that is attached to the budget, until there's some clarification on SLOSS, we just have the one item which we discussed tonight for capital. As you can see, we originally started with over 900,000 in capital requests that got it cut out. And then we get into the operating budget. And
So, Matt, I want to know where you are. I am here. Is that where you are?
that's where I was. I said we cut out.
So you were talking about over 900,000.
Well, with the one that we left in, if we add them together, it's over 900,000.
Oh, so
In
this,
total.
is this the one that was taken out? Am I reading this correctly?
The one with the right at the top, unfunded requests, those are the ones that were removed. That's the one that's kept in, that we'll hear about tonight.
Okay, all right, I got you. I want to make sure.
The next page shows the unfunded requests, and that's left, what he was referring to is almost 867,000. Next gets into the operating section. And I won't get into details, but just kind of showing the overall format. And this shows all of our funds, and you can see total revenues for each fund and total expenditures, and you can see that the governmental funds, which includes general funds, loss funds, those kinds of things, they balance to zero. But our enterprise fund is what Michelle referred to. We have a deficit there. We'll talk more about that. And then you see the detail for each line item. And I did make notes on different accounts. There was a large increase. I did have a question about what CY means. That is current year. So if you see based on CY projections, that means it's based on 2016 projections.
What page is that right now?
This, I'm sorry, there aren't page numbers, but you get into the latter half of the book is the detail revenue.
Are we going to go through this and then drop back and do our questions? Is that what we're doing?
Well, tonight, we will not be going through any line items of the operating budget.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is just kind of giving you an overview of the overall budget preparation process. And then we're going to deal with the capital fund. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the general fund and begin to get into that. But the only line item probably we'll be looking at tonight, other than the very brief on the capital fund, will be on the senior center. Now, if Ms. Stillwell had not been going out of town, frankly, I would not have had her scheduled to the next meeting, and we would have wrapped up tonight by looking at revenues. We'll do that at your next meeting before we start the other department reviews.
So at what point do we question? Do we need to-
Well, I'd like right now is the question is to just be on the process
I got you, okay.
rather than trying to get into nitty gritty.
That makes sense.
Okay. So the next many pages are just detailed line by line revenue and every department's expenditure. At the end of the detail, you can see the shared allocation of expenses. This is, if the water sewer fund was a standalone utility of its own, it would have a finance department and a CEO type person. You have a public works director. All the things that we have now, those are in the general fund. But like I said, if it was a standalone utility, you'd have to consider those costs. So this is the water sewer fund paying for a portion of those expenses. So that's, we can talk more about that as we get to that part of the discussion, but I just want to kind of let you know what I'm referring to as the allocation of shared expenses. That's the water sewer fund paying for a portion of those administrative costs. And then I've given you a draft of what the compliance certificate would be like for our bond if this budget was adopted and we did get those revenues and spend those expenditures the way it's budgeted. And as we'll talk about further, I did budget in a way that it would allow you to be in compliance with the bond. At the end of the book, just have some other funds, which is like your debt service and your SPLOST. Those need to be budgeted for. I don't know if they've historically been budgeted. And lastly is the employee counts. So you can see where we are in 2016, the positions that we have. And in the red or the pink column, we've only added one position in this budget, and it was a patrol officer. And I'm sorry, I think no, I feel correct. So in the pink, in 2016, we've only added one position. There were some other changes, like we froze a couple positions and reclassifying one position from one title to another. And we can talk more about as we get into the actual line item expenditures, but any questions about the process itself or the presentation?
One of the things I said is that we'll never be able to keep up if the nation is bumping.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
What you said about adding a position?
We'll just hold out. We'll be sure when we get to the police department budget, you'll have a number of questions. But that's the only increase in personnel we're talking about. That's what we're talking. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, unless there's other questions on the process, we can move to capital fund. And I'll make a report.
I do have it.
Yes, sir.
All right. We just had this explained to us so that we kind of a little bit more. I thought I understood it. Then you're going to take this away from us?
No,
Oh, this is that. Where do you take it back?
not bad.
You have
Oh,
Oh, you.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, wow.
If we had had to give you a second one, I wanted the second one back.
I got you. That makes sense. All right.
We really want you to sleep with it.
There's still a good bit in here that haven't had a chance.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Go through it. All right. My bad.
Okay, Mr. Allen. We're gonna move now to our capital budget plan. Section 620 of the city charter says that not later than 60 days before the start of the next fiscal year, that I'm to present a proposed capital improvements plan to the city council. And that's what we are now going to do. Now, we're looking tonight at a very minimum capital improvements plan. This has been mentioned at a couple of past meetings when we had talked about needing answers from our new attorneys on several things as it relates to the 2015 SPLOSH bond funds in particular. But we also have to have the capital improvements plan that has to be presented to you, and that's what we plan to do at this time. Now, most of you, I think all of you know a couple of the problems that we need to have our attorneys take a close look at with the 2015 SPLOSH referendum. That while each local government in Carroll County knows the approximate amount of SPLOSH dollars that it can expect to receive during the life of the collections, there are no directions as to how that money would be divided among the several program areas that were included in the referendum. Nor is there identification as even to a percentage split. Now, for the city of Temple, that's something that we'll have to deal with. The city of Villa Rica is doing the same thing, trying to determine how to be sure that we're on solid legal footing with whatever division of funds are made among the SPLOSH revenue. And it's of particular concern to this local government because the due date on your $6.4 million balloon payment on bonded indebtedness, of course, is drawing closer and closer. I think it's January of 2021. So there has been some discussion as to how much of the 2015 SPLOSH dollars we might be able to use that purpose, if that's what you wanted to do, or had it all might fit together. At the moment, we've simply asked City Attorney Mike McRae, I've sent him a memo saying we need to look at this to be sure that we're on solid ground. And until we get all that worked out, I think that we need to be cautious and go slow on the expenditure of 2015 SPLOSH funds. Now, in addition to the 2015 SPLOSH funds, we do have some other SPLOSH money for capital projects. The biggest part of that we don't hold in our hands at this time, but we expect probably shortly after the first of the year, we should be getting back the $100,000 that we had to pay to the state, if you remember, about last January to get us over the hump with the Land and Water Conservation Project. Hopefully we're going to get that project final check out and everything very soon. But what we plan to do tonight during this particular work session is to present to you a limited capital budget. Now, if you are looking ahead to the rest of the evening, we've got a special call meeting at 6:30, and the last item on that will be the presentation to you officially in a city council meeting of what we're talking about insofar as this very limited capital fund budget. When the mayor and I met earlier this afternoon, he felt that he would be more comfortable if we did not do the public hearing until some few days from that, namely looking at when we get back together, meeting on November the 7th. And I told him that certainly would be fine for the schedule. It wouldn't interfere with the schedule at all, and it would keep anybody from thinking that we were jumping through two hoops right at the same time. So what we will do is that we'll be presenting information to you during your call meeting later tonight. There will not be a public hearing after that. That will come on the 7th of November. That will still fit in with the schedule so that we will be on track both with the capital fund budget and the operating fund budget to have everything wrapped up by December 5, unless we run into some problems. It takes more time and discussion than going back to the drawing board. Now, at this time, Ms. Hefty will make whatever comments she wants to make on the capital fund budget, and then Public Works Director Dwayne Everhart will come up and give you a report on the single project that we're talking about at this time with the capital project funding. And then after Mr. Everhart's report, then the three of us will be available for questions that you have and any discussion that you want to have. Sarah?
Yes, so referring to the capital budget, which is about the fourth or fifth page. And it's listed as 2 items, but it's really one project. I just wanted to split it out and show the source of funding. We anticipate receiving a grant from GDOT and in the amount of $37,500, about there. And we have to match 30% from the general fund. So the total project would be $48,750. And that's it.
Dwayne, you will come on up and make your report.
Mayor and Council, this is in relation to the Lemay project. And based on Councilman Walden, I think you guys want some input on the street that we choose this year. So if you could provide me that street, that would be great. The only thing that I'm proposing that we have to do is buildings. We need to strike that street across from the pilot and the McDonald's. Now, I already got an estimate on that, which is $1,729. That's my only recommendation that we include in the bid. So once you guys provide me a street, we'll include it as well.
Except where the process, 113, down where all the confusion.
And if I could just add to that, and of course, Dwayne had mentioned that to the previous council meeting, and I had put that in the memo that's in your workbook concerning the capital fund budget. And where there's one street or a couple of streets on that issue that are chosen, we're not putting any restrictions on any of you as to what you submit. So if you feel like you need to submit 3 streets, submit 3 streets. At some point, we'll be getting back with you, and y'all gonna have to make a choice on what actual streets you want the work done on to fit within the budget. But we do need your input in terms of what you'd like to be considered.
And also keep in mind that there has been turned in by December 31st.
So what is the process? Let's just tell you the street.
If you would, you just come by and I'll get you to give me something in writing, send me an email, and I'm not sure. When do you, what kind of deadline you want to get the streets by when?
Probably by December, because then I will call the county out to my price. As you guys know, there is a 30% match. And typically what has been done in the past, I think $63,000 has been what we've actually used. $37,500 is normally what we get for the Lemay project. And I think the city actual budget is about $27,007. So that equals 63.
That's historical, that's not what we were able to fit in the budget this year.
Is there any way that we can do the striping beforehand, before next year on buildings, and then pay that money back out of the LD? Is that a possibility?
Well, if I could interrupt just to say, let us, we'll get together and come back in, but we do have small amounts of money in a couple of the old splash accounts that we may be able to come up with. You're talking about less than $2,000, right? So let us take a look at that and get back.
That's a bad problem.
It is a major problem, needs to be addressed. We're going to say that 6 months. That's a dangerous place.
By the pilot truck stop where there's no lines on Billings Road there.
Like right across from McDonald's.
Between McDonald's and Pilot.
It's a hazard.
The name of the street is Bill.
Billings
Mr. Hart, down at, on the Villa Motion Road down there, do we ever get any of that stuff down there? That needs to be included, too, on the start striping.
just say one thing, on the capital fund. What you've got is a staff recommendation, it really is three parts. One, that we keep a very limited capital fund budget at this time until we get the legal advice from our attorneys in terms of what our options are. And the second is, if the attorney try to get a better handle than we have right now as to what our options are in terms of use of the 2015 funds, both among different project areas, recreation, roads, so forth, and as well as debt retirement. And I know that the mayor and I had 2 or 3 conversations of looking at not moving forward. The mayor's made some comments that he didn't feel comfortable with signing any of the checks to pay for SPOS projects until we had some answers from our attorneys on what we've just been talking about. So what we're doing is not trying to tackle all the money that we would be looking for in 2015 SPOS during the next fiscal year, or even what we're holding now. But I am required to give you a capital improvements plan, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just making it consist of one project at this point.
And this $11,250 city fund, is that going to be okay for the Elmberry requirement of all matching portions?
It depends on the street and the chief, and the amount of the cost to actually do the work.
Well, I think what we're saying is with this proposal here, we would have $48,700 to spend on Elmberry project, correct?
This is the minimum, we have to match 30%, but if we were to go above that for the projects that y'all want, then it's more.
You have an idea of what street you would think?
There's different streets I looked at, there's some bad spots, alligator spots, a lot of streets, even some of those, there's some alligator spots. Sage Street, there's some alligator spots and some hills, but
Now, Sage Street, since it's a state highway, would that be something you're responsible for?
that's the state highway.
Yes, sir. A portion of it is by the drugstore, returns, the fire station up there, but now up towards Wood Products, that is not a state highway. So a portion of Sage.
Turns up.
Yes, sir.
James
That's the
Street,
area you're talking about?
that's state highway. James Street is part of 274, is state highway.
We would use our money.
They tried to give us that 274 several times, and the answer is no, we do not want it. That's the shortest highway, state highway in the state of Georgia, and we want to keep it, or we want to go there.
And I will say this too, again, it's you guys' choice, but I will make this suggestion, once we do, if we could do one street, because once we're doing the taxes, we still got to go back, maybe 3 years from now to finish the street, so we can just try to do one street at a time, and we'll accomplish more in terms of paving all the streets in this instead of doing one section at a time.
See, last year, everybody settled on Rome Street.
Could this include subdivision? Like they finish a subdivision?
If it's a city street, but if it's not a city street,
Like Amy Boulevard,
then you go all
Amy Ridge, that's a city street, right?
How long has the subdivision been?
That's a long time. That's been accepted, that's one of the ones.
That's one that we've got some activity on this time, right?
Amy Ridge.
No, I'm just-
Amy Ridge is
Yeah, I know.
a 3 subdivision, and that's been
So, yeah, I don't know if those streets will ever be to the city.
We can double check that, but all of that should have been handled some years ago.
Way back.
That was put in.
But the answer to the question is, if it's a city street, regardless of where it is, it can be
Regardless
considered.
if it's a city street, it can be on Avenue, it's not a city street.
Then it
Then
could.
I don't think we can do it.
Okay, that makes sense. That's what I thought I was hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore.
Thank you.
Ordinance 217, operating budget plan.
Yes, sir, we're gonna shift our focus now from the capital budget to the operating budget. Section 616 of the city charter says that on or before a date fixed by the city council, but not later than 45 days prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, that I'm to submit to you a proposed operating budget for the ensuing fiscal year. We of course gave you the 2017 proposed printed operating budget last Friday, October 21st. And today, we will begin providing explanations to you, and you will begin your consideration and ultimate modification as you wish to of the budget. And hopefully we'll be adopting it on December 5. So frankly, as we go through the process, when we get into the middle of November, if we have bogged down, and I know we all had to look at this before, of changing the date of the December meeting, hopefully we'll not have to do that. Now, I assume that all of you have done at least some review of the document, and that you have read or glanced at my transmittal letter to you at the front of the booklet that you received. And I identified in that what I consider to be the important features of the draft 2017 budget, as well as a brief explanation of some major changes being recommended to you. And that is part of what I'm to report to you under your city ordinance on your operating budget. Basically, I would say that what staff has presented to you is what I would call a continuation budget. While we do have some changes that we're looking at, most of what we've got is a continuation of what we have been doing. For the most part, we're looking at continuing the programs and activities that you approved a year ago. There are not a lot of changes. There are some things that we did. We adjusted for inflation. We dealt with a little bit of growth in some areas. We dealt with some incremental increases, such as looking at cost of living, varied increases for city employees. I'm going to keep my comments on the operating budget pretty brief at this time, because we will be focusing over the next remainder of today's session and then the next two sessions on hearing from different departments. We'll be talking in more detail about that. You will find that there are a number of proposed activities that are identified in the cover letter that has been given to you concerning this budget prepared by staff. And I would simply point out to you that if you look at the 2017 budget, then among the key things, in my opinion, that we have put in there would let us continue what I consider to be our valuable relationship and agreement between the city of Temple and the city of Villa Rica. That contract, as you know, is a 3-year contract we will be continuing. At a very small cost to the city of Temple, we have the opportunity to being a part of a salary survey study that the city of Villa Rica will be doing. That rather than us going out and doing that on our own, we can save a lot of money by participating with Villa Rica in that. And I've been talking with their city manager, David Mirline, about us doing that, and we do include some money in the budget for that. We already know from experience and from some surveying that I've been involved with the police department, that our compensation levels for certified officers in our police department is lower than our competing jurisdictions. The same is true for a couple of positions in our public works department, and we are looking at some change that we're recommending to you there. Also, the operating budget for next year will include money to help us do three things that I think are very important. One is to update our zoning map. We desperately need a current zoning map. Update our zoning ordinance. It's out of whack and needs to be redone. And our city attorney can give us some help with that, because as he was instrumental in drafting those, for example, in Cedartown and Rockmart, and those will probably, for the most part, be applicable what we look at. And the final piece of that is for us to get an updated land use map. We very much need we're talking about what our current land use is and what our future land use is. Our maps are way out of date, as you know. Now, before we hear from Sandra Stillwell concerning the senior center in a few minutes, we'll call Sarah for comments she wants to make concerning the overall operating budget, and then Ms. Stillwell will make her report, and then the three of us will be available, or if you want to, and what we might do, Sarah, is before we move to Sandra, Mr. Mayor, that'd be okay, probably just to have a discussion with y'all on anything you want to talk about in the global picture on the operating budget. Now, I will tell you that some things obviously are working in process, and I'll give you an example. Sarah and I talked about this on several occasions in the last few weeks as we look at salaries, for example, for our key personnel, our paid personnel in the city. And the Department, U.S. Department of Labor had proposed a very significant change that hits public sector employees as well as private sector. It has to do with when you have to pay overtime to salaried workers. At the moment, you don't have to pay overtime to salaried workers unless they make less than $23,660. Now, the U.S. Department of Labor had proposed changing overtime rules and regulations. And members of Congress opposed this, some members of Congress at least. A lawsuit was filed by 21 states, including the state of Georgia, asking that this order be delayed or stopped, the implementation of part of this. But we now just received notice. My notice came at 4:57 p.m. yesterday, an email from David Billine down in Villarica that effective December 1 of this year, 5 weeks from now, that you have to pay overtime to any salaried employee who earns less than $47,500 a year. That's more than double what the limit is now. I will be making a recommendation to you in November on this, because you wanted to make a decision before the end of November. I will tell you that we probably have at least a couple of people who are salaried that I want to recommend to you that pay them an hour. Otherwise, you're talking about a $10,000 increase that we would have to pay them. Keep them from being eligible for overtime. It's easier to pay the overtime like that. But so that's part of what kind of a fluid situation, just to give that as an example. Now, before we move to Cassandra in her presentation in a few minutes, I do expect us to be able to go forward with installing new roofing on the senior center before the end of this year. We do have specs, and I should be getting those specs in tomorrow. We had to go 3 different routes trying to get them. We expect to be coming to you to get the approval, advertised for bids for this new. Your budget includes $25,000 for this project. It's one we need to move forward on this year because we got leaks and they get worse rather than better, as you know. Let me turn things over to Ms. Hefty at this point. If any comments she wants to make on the operating budget and then general fund, and then we will have your discussion, and then we'll move after that to this bill.
Just general fund? Just general fund or overall operating?
Overall operating.
Okay. I would say some of the significant, he's already touched on some of the major changes in the general fund, but obviously the more painful operating changes were on the water sewer side. Again, I budgeted to show what it would be to get us to that compliant point of 1.05 and on. And some of those bigger changes are depreciation that was taken out of the 2016 budget, and then the debt service. Historically, we really budgeted the interest portion, but the whole debt service payment, so that's went from $200,000 of interest, and if you look at the whole payment at $622,000, that needs to be budgeted. So those are 2 major changes right there, almost $800,000 that were not historically included in the budget for the water sewer fund. But if we continue to not budget for the full expenditure that we encounter, then our revenues are never going to match, are never going to be high enough budget-wise to match that. So obviously this is y'all's budget to decide, but we wanted to present it, in a way that shows where we would get to. So that's the point I wanted to make.
Thank you, Mrs. Stillwell. You want to pull up a chair or you want to stand for it? Yeah, if I could,
You got a chair right here, Sandra?
if you would flip over to the senior center budget, and if you go past administration, police, and public works, we'll come to the senior center budget.
I'm looking at stuff like all of the right at the top, group insurance, short-term disability, FSCA tax, retirement, workers' comp, and I see all of that is down. Is that, am I reading that correct?
Sarah, that's going to be true for virtually all departments. You want to address that, Sarah?
That would be good. This would be a good time so we know.
Sure.
Please.
This, we looked at, I don't believe anybody in Seniors Department has group insurance, so we just brought that down to 0 because there hadn't been any spent this year. The column y'all are missing is the year-to-date actuals, and so we've taken, we have a list of all the employees and their salaries and budgeted increase for everybody based on merit and change of living, cost of living adjustment. And then from that, we calculate the FICA based on the actual tax rate. And then workers' comp, we base it on the current year the current year actual. So it's kind of a combination of a percentage. We know what the tax rate is, so I can calculate that would be based off these salaries. And then some of the other insurances, which aren't for sure, are budgeted based on the current year.
Gotcha. I just noticed like, short-term disability dropped 50%.
Well, even if you look at the 2015 actual, we only paid out 80.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
It's a combination of looking at history and where we stand so far in 2016.
Oh, so workman's comp is significantly different, right?
Yes, we had some really bad experience in 2015, I believe, and so we took a pretty big hit in 2016. So budgeting in case, but hopefully not.
If you go back and y'all will remember your monthly statements that you were getting from Sarah back, well, even almost up to the current time, but especially on those first few months, until we made some adjustments, it was showing you have small amounts of money in some of the departments for workers' comp and huge expenditures, and that was because we had this huge payment that we had to make out that hadn't been in the budget, and did the adjustment on it later in the year. But,
I get you. All right, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I was reading it right.
The only thing I can say is we're below budget on everything we've had this year so far, but it's not due to my other one, some of the increase pretty substantial. And the only thing different on this is I'm asking for $60 a month in mileage. I do not have a vehicle and I use my car a lot. And I know I'm getting 55 cents per mile back, but there's a lot of paperwork to run up here, run over there, and run up here. And I take two trips to Carrollton each month for meetings. We go to Sam 3 or 4 times a year. Take people home. I go to Eagle several times a month. A week, actually, sometimes 3 times a week. I come here a lot. And it's still I got every time I get in that car. It's just, a lot of stuff.
Is it okay to budget it that way? I'm sorry. Is it okay to budget it that way? I mean, that's like,
we would basically be giving, she would be receiving a car allowance in the same way that I do.
right, not have to worry about the $60 a month.
Y'all don't get,
And realistically, that doesn't seem like, is that $60? Is that 60?
We could take a look at that. Sandra and I talked a little bit about that yesterday, when we went to Carrollton. She rode with me, so she didn't have to speak yesterday. But I was asking her, I said, where all do you go? And, while most everything is running around, all I was told, you run around town, and for long, you need some more gas. So we can take a look at that to while this is a small item, it's also maybe a good time to make the point that, as I said to start with, we're coming to you with a balanced budget. So if, for example, you wanted to raise that amount for Sarah for Sandra from $60 to $75, $15 a month doesn't sound like much, but that's got to come from somewhere. So we got to have a place to get it. We just can't manufacture the money. So anytime, and like I say, this is a very small amount, but it's as good a time as any to make the point as we go through this. As y'all talk about, well, we need to spend money in this area. Well, that's fine, but at the same time, we need to talk about how we're going to reduce money in another area. Because now, I'm not saying at some point we can't go back and look to see if we need to do any adjustments in revenues, but we were conservative when we looked at it, and maybe we could find a little bit more. But I can tell you from many, many years of budgeting, and one thing I certainly don't want us to do this year is to say, okay, yeah, we'll just go up on the budget and we'll just increase our anticipated revenues unless you know that it's logical to do so.
So we can take it out of, just for an example, if we said, okay, we're gonna make it $100 a month mileage. So this is presented to us balanced. But to make up the $40, we say, well, we're gonna take it out of here, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and not necessarily in her budget, maybe in somebody
Yeah, we
else's.
can take it out of wherever we want.
Wherever.
Okay, that's,
So we just need to identify where it would come from.
Okay.
As part of the process.
So if we look at something of that nature, is it our responsibility to figure out where we would want to take it from, or this?
We will work, let me say this, we'll work with you on it, but I think that, what I don't want to get into, and like I say, this was a small example, so but if we had something major, what I don't want to do is to get in a situation for, let's say you say, well, you know, $20,000 is what we need to do this, which is not included in the budget. Now, Bill, you and Sarah go find that $20,000. We want you to be part of the process of where we would find the $20,000.
See, and that makes total sense, if that's your expectation of us, because I don't object to doing that at all, if that's how you want to do it, and that was the reason, is that what you expect us to do? If we want to look at changing somewhere, you want us to look at, okay, if we do this, here's where we can take it. Now, and then you look to that to be sure that we're right, and that we're not doing something that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you decided that, look, we'll be talking about revenues at your next meeting. If you say, you know, I think, Sarah, you and Bill all went in terms of this, that let me show you why I think that we're gonna get another 20,000 in here. And, you know, we'll talk about that.
I got you. That makes total sense. But I do have one other question, Matt. I've always thought that our senior center is one of our flagships. And the question is that I'm looking at the actuals of 2015, budgeted for 2016, and the request for 2017, and it looks to me like that we are dropping the amount that we're spending on food by $5,000.
Yeah.
Well, just what we were seeing in the 2016 actuals wasn't, she saved me money. So in 2016, that's what we've seen. So when I projected out, I think I even added more than what I projected out for the end of this year. So again, it was looking at 2013 and 2015 actuals and then comparing this year. And, you know, maybe this year was just, I don't want to say a fluke, but maybe things were lower this year, but things could be higher next year.
Okay.
And I do want to point out, just overall, it's just a 1% increase. So yes, there are some increases and decreases, but overall, just asking for a 1% increase for senior center. And yes, to add to your point, our hope is that with the work sessions, we can work together. So by the time December comes, you know, we've had enough conversations that,
Absolutely.
and, you know, we're included with that too, so I can help do the math and, you know, continue to bring a balanced budget.
Well, my deal is I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but if I definitely am quite sure that I'm not the only one that's going to have some questions along the way. So if I know between now and the next meeting that I need to be looking at this closely, figure out where to get the other $25 a month, then I don't object to doing that. But I also was hoping that, and you just answered that you guys may also have some ways to help us. Because the most important thing with the senior center is that it is the flagship. And I want us to always be there to be sure that that population is addressed, period. And it's that you go almost anywhere in the area, and it's known for its food. And for seniors to get a well-balanced, good meal is critical to the nation, not just here, to the nation. That's the only reason I asked. I want to make sure that she can do it for $50,000. She can probably do it for $30,000, but she can do it for style. Then I'm happy. Does that make sense?
Does the senior center own a car?
We got
It's always parked up there.
Well, that was one of the police cars, and now I think, Red had it was,
And then my other question, I don't have any issue with doing the mileage, but if you were to get in an accident, taking somebody home,
pay mileage than it is to.
Oh, I mean, I'm okay with it, I'm just looking at liability. What could potentially happen.
You got a bus. Private bus.
I think it depends on what they cover.
Well, I had to have special insurance when I was a district manager for Waffle House because I was toting employees. So I had to have a higher coverage limits because of the fact that I had employees in my corps. But I also got paid the vehicle allowance too, so that all be offset.
So if you get a roof, you're happy with this budget?
Yeah, and I get storage to make sure everything is around. So this is our camera and that's out there. And this is our library, where our books are. And this is our several pictures, and this is our kitchen program, and this is my office. This is my office and store.
And you have a freezer that you have to take stuff off the top before you can get even into it.
Yeah, one of the things while y'all passing pictures around, and you probably have looked, when we do get ready to start talking about, adding to the capital budget, of course, one of the things that we've got, in there as we look at this possibility of things and how much it could do is looking at the building condition, the storage, cooler and freezer at the senior center. That's on Sanders' Christmas wish list.
But I do have a question. We have a library now in town. Is there any way of working with the library to store? I mean, are these available so people walk in and take them off the shelf? Oh, so it's part of the sale.
We put them on a table, that doesn't show the table, we have a table full of books that we sell, we paper that one down, and those are what they go to our pocket.
Okay. You sell there, you?
Yeah, we're not. Probably they buy it, take it home, bring it back.
And sell it again? That's pretty
I
cool.
mean, it's not a problem.
This was the health inspector.
She was there, but,
Let's get done.
no. It was, set up on the time, Eric was there, calculated. But she did tell me I needed to replace the tile, and keep for it, but she's sure I had.
I'll free for that.
Said I was sure the roof had been fixed, I need to fix the tiles.
She got off free on the tiles. That she does us all the time.
I did.
You normally get 100, don't you?
Yeah, but they're very strict.
It's hard to always be perfect. And we do.
So this would take care of this. And this is in, if we get something worked out about this part.
We got money, yeah, just a little money about that.
Definitely need, but we have more need, but I think we have money.
Oh, I wasn't proposing anything, I was just asking.
Looks like we budgeted, we cut pretty close.
Yeah, she did good. She whacked it.
Yeah.
Everybody's paid.
And Sandra, though we did quacking on it, is there anything that you want to identify to the mayor and council that we whacked out, or is most of what you're looking at here with trim stuff?
Well, that miscellaneous, that was for, business stuff, the drivers, and I was saving that this year, I gave him some, we did. I was saving it for like Thanksgiving and Christmas, so that was really gonna add to this. And, we're gonna have the bigger than what it shows. In fact, it's going to probably double. So, I mean, that may not be enough.
How about a 650?
Yeah, yeah. I have 6 people to deliver meals, and I was going to tell you, I'll have to take care of that. Plus, we have other volunteers who go to the little money too, and then I have got 45 things for Thanksgiving dinner with Carroll County Council on Aging.
You have the date of that. You have the date.
No, November 17th. And you all welcome to come back at your office holder, they'll introduce you. All, under your social security. We have
Where
one
is
six,
it?
it's the, Carrollton Rec, East Carrollton Rec.
Same place as last year.
Can I point something out? As a former auditor, I try to reduce the amounts that are in miscellaneous expense, because that's just, it's hard to identify what's in there. So, if anything, if you wanted to increase back for her, what she's requesting, what she's talking about, I would put in operating supplies. To me, that's just part of her operation. But I do want to point out in the general fund, I was able to, I try to give a little bit of contingency to all the departments, because there are things that come up that are not budgeted. So that is $1,000 there for her in her department, that could be used for things like that too.
Cool.
I have a question, for a certain section. Maybe it's somewhere else in here, I just haven't seen it. Where does it show the revenues?
If you look at, in the beginning of the general fund section, starts with the revenue detail, and you can see there is a section for senior center. So the food expenses down is, lower this year, but so is the revenue a little bit, so that has been dropped as well. And if next year was higher on the revenue, and, it correlates. If the revenue is higher, your expense may be higher. So if we did go with this budget on those two items, and it's higher as the year progresses next year, then we can always come back with a budget amendment that raises the revenue and raises the expense. Because, in theory, they should correlate, so.
And one other question, Mr. Mayor. I know that you're constantly looking and you're constantly adding activities and whatever for the center. Is that adequately covered in here? I know you do a lot of trips, but that's, you do exercise, you do all kinds of things, so.
We have Lady Tanner who came, last Tuesday, and she brought, we have to wait. She brought us some band, the Tanner, donated to us for exercise. When people were in classes, they used to furnish their own material.
So that's constantly being there. There's no need in that area at this point.
Give donations.
Is it realistic to have the revenue down on the bills by $5,000?
But that was a shocker to me. I didn't do it, but it's been down. It's been down this year. We've had a lot of,
Charge more on bills.
Well, I thought that every time, because we have several that can pay the dollar, and a lot of people are paying their dollar for it. That's just kind of bigger expense than someone else is trying to.
That's a great service for
Getting
kids.
Well,
Although they deserve a little bit.
Tried meeting yesterday, they asked me to get a list of people that we deliver meals to and ask them if they had a smoke detector. And if not, we're going to try to get it next time, so.
So, Sarah, did you use the projected cost at all on these meals? Or is it just what it is, what it is? Like, we don't have an actual for 2016, but the figures are actually, so like in 2015 actual was $29,608. That means that's how many dollar meals we serve.
Right. But
No,
there's
it's not all meals are $1.
the detail pays to the water. And that's paid to the water department. And one reason the meals are down is because before we did not let the people who deliver the meals have free meals. And some of the other volunteers and other issues about them to get their meals free. So that's 6 people, which is part of the reason. That's 6 people, 1 night a day a week. The meals are free, but then they deliver those meals, so that was just a, yeah.
But I guess my question is, this is a real number, this isn't something projected off the cost of the food.
No.
Okay.
And again, we were very conservative with revenues because we don't want to overpay revenues that are not going to materialize. So again, if y'all, think we should raise it, if we know of any other programs, or if there's going to be changes to the prices that are going to be charged, just throwing out ideas, then as you maybe add expense somewhere, we can always go back and increase that revenue if we feel like that would be more reasonable.
So you're happy?
I know the cost of the food was down because of the fuel prices. 2 years ago, it was,
Okay, thank you, Senator. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Ogden.
Yes, sir, the only thing I had to make a comment, Mr. Mayor, as we wrap up, is just to remind all of you that our next budget work session will be at 4:30 on Monday, November 7th. That will be prior to your regular scheduled monthly meeting at 6:30. And I think Kristen has given you the schedule for the next one of these work sessions. I would remind you of what I had said early on, that we will be modifying the agenda for your next work session so that we start off by Ms. Hefty presenting information to you on proposed amendments to the current 2016 fiscal year. We feel like you can go ahead and be aware of that information even as we move forward with this. What that probably will mean is that what you're looking at now, the last department that was going to report to you at your next meeting was administration, and we may well move that to the following workshop. We'll take a look at that. But when we reassemble here in a few days, we'll start off looking at 2016 proposed amendments, and then we'll move back to the 2017 budget, and we'll focus on the revenue section that you've got here. So, Mr. Mayor, we're about 10 minutes earlier than we thought we were going to be. That's good. We haven't covered what we need to cover.
Have a water break or a restroom break?
Yes, sir. So the next